Hey, welcome, beloved. In this particular series, I'm going to be teaching what some people have termed the 4 stages of change. Change is a word that produces both fear and excitement at the same time. Because on one side, you have change promising you the introduction to new and untold experiences and opportunities. But then on the other side, you have change promising you loss in exchange for those opportunities and experiences. What it boils down to is that true and authentic change ordained by God will cost you the high price of relationships, people, places, things, habits, and in some cases, even behaviors that we've grown attached to over the years. You know, I feel like I'm saying too much. I don't want to give it all away. Check out this clip, and I'll be back in a moment. I'm happy to see Brother Brown over there, beard and all. I love him, man. I think you know that by now, though. I love him. I want you to turn to Ecclesiastes chapter 3, please. Ecclesiastes chapter 3. It starts with an E. I ain't gonna finish the rest because it's a lot of spelling. That was my best subject, but I ain't gonna embarrass myself this early in the message. All right. So Ecclesiastes, if you get there, y'all laugh, and some of us can't pronounce it though. Look, I can pronounce it, I just can't spell it. Okay. All right, I got halfway there. Ecclesiastes chapter 3. I'm going to read more than I normally would. I'm going to read down through the first verse to the 8th verse, and then we're going to dive in and swim to the middle of the pool. Do you have it? The Bible says, to everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up that which was planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to tear and a time to sew together, a time to keep silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. More than anything, all of those scriptures are emphasizing balance, isn't it? But more importantly than just balance, the writer wrote a whole lot to say this, that change is a part of life. Don't miss it. And so when you look at those nuances in this text, what you find is the writer is subtly telling us that if you want balance in your life, you're going to have to recognize the seasons in your life. Because seasons keep us from having too much of one thing and not enough of another. I want to use for a subject this morning, understanding change. Understanding change. And I want to challenge you this morning as we begin to explore this subject, that you don't compartmentalize your thinking and receive it as God is talking about change in one little area of your life. But I need you to use your imagination this morning without constraints and without restraints, and imagine your entire life and understand what it is that God is addressing in regard to the seasons in your life and the change that He's trying to produce in your life, so that we don't just stick it in one area and we miss everything else. If God just told me to change, I could live with that. But when He tells me to understand change, it takes me to another level. Because what I've found is you can go to a preacher, you can go to a psychiatrist, you can go to a therapist, you can go to a life coach, and you can hear all of them collectively at the same time on chorus and on cue tell you how much you need to change. They can preach it to you until they turn purple or blue or red in the face. And they can tell you over and over again how much change would benefit your life and how wonderful your life would be and could be if you just change. That's all it takes. But what I've found is if you don't understand why you need to change for yourself, you will never have the internal fortitude or the integrity to follow through with the change you started. Because you will only change as long as somebody is telling you to. And to understand change means I now have to come up in my thinking and grow in my spirit to the point where I can hear God announce season changing, season beginning, and season endings in my life. I don't need you to tell me what God. See, can I share this? Because we can all be honest. We're family. You and I know that it's nothing worse than somebody else telling you what you need to change. And God is saying it affects you negatively because that was never His intention if you were filled with the Holy Spirit. He says, for the Holy Spirit being inside of you is supposed to totally bypass somebody else having to announce what He wants to do in your life. He says, I want you to know and then go beyond knowing, but to understanding why you need to change. And not only that, but why you must change. Because change is not an option. See, the problem is we've approached our life thinking that everything is an option because God doesn't take our ability of free will into choose, does He? He's not going to take, you can choose whatever you want because He allowed me to use my power over my life. But change is not an option. And you won't change until you understand that change is not an option for you. It is a must for you. And I can prove it because everything around you and about you is changing right now as you sit in here with or without your permission. With or without your permission, the clock on the wall is changing. Time is changing, and time didn't stop and say, Nicole, can I become 10:30, please? It's going to do it with or without your permission. Saturday didn't say, can Sunday come? Your hair is growing right now without your participation, without your knowledge. And your hair isn't saying, can I become gray in a year? Can I grow longer and make you have to go to the beauty salon? It's not asking you that. Your weight is changing right now, whether you know it or not. Your age is changing right now, whether you know it or not. And your age is not stopping and saying, excuse me, ma'am, do you mind if I add another year to your life? Everything right now is changing with or without your permission, with or without your knowledge, with or without your approval. You don't get to say, because Saturday I had so much fun and Saturday was the best moment of my life, I'm just going to say it's Saturday because I don't want Sunday to come. You don't get to do that. And many of us, that's how we live our life, because you enjoyed one season of your life so much, you've tried to press pause on life and prevent what was next from coming. And we look just as crazy when we sit around in life trying to live in a moment that has expired. How crazy would you look? And I'm using this as an example. How crazy would you look if because you loved yesterday so much, you came to church trying to convince all of us it ain't Sunday? No, I mean, that makes good sense now, right? That ain't deep, but it's powerful and it's true, because some of you, we have had the audacity to try to press pause on a good time and prevent the next thing from happening. Change is happening at all times. With you, without you, around you, with or without your permission. So if change is not an option, and if change is going to happen to me with or without my permission, my goal has to now become to make sure that I change with the change that's happening. If I can't stop change from coming, I have no other option except to change with it. And we know this much about life. We know, well, we didn't need Solomon to tell us that this morning, that, life is about change, and change is a big part of our life. We know that. We understand that. But did you know that change was an even bigger part of God's plan for your life? Have you ever really thought about it like that? Because you've heard it before. That's just part of life, change. But did you really know that, yes, change is a part of life, but change is an even bigger part of God's plan for your life? For God to have saved you, and in some cases rescued you from your old life, old habits, and old ways, and Him to leave you the same without change, that would undermine everything He planned, purposed, and designed in going to the cross on our behalf. Listen to this, everything that God did in regards to Him becoming less so that we could become better was rooted and empowered with change in mind. God says, if I change me, they can change them. And that's what I love about God, is He has never asked me to do anything He did not do first. In fact, He's never asked me to do anything to a greater degree than He did it. So therefore, I can't say, well, God asking me to do more. No. Anything He asks me to do, it'll never be in comparison to what He did. And the fact that He did it before me, He left footprints for me to follow His steps, so that I cannot say or use for an excuse, Lord, I don't know how to change because I saw you change first. He showed me what changed looked like. He didn't just give me a 66 chapter book and say, go for it. He showed me everything that I was to do and become by being it before He ever asked me to do it. And so to understand change, it means you have to understand that change, and I know some of us never thought of it like this, but I want you to think about it like this. You're going to have to think about it like this going forward in your life. To understand change means to understand that change is a natural and spiritual part of the process in how we live our lives. It's both. Wasn't that what the text in Ecclesiastes preached? He preached balance, didn't he? He preached seasonal changes in people's life and in things. And what he was speaking to was that it's not just a change in one area, it's a change in both areas. So change is natural and spiritual. If we're going to have a balanced life, we've got to understand that that's what it is. It's a natural, and change is a natural and spiritual part of the process in how we live our lives. And if we are going to live the life that God designed us to live, then we are going to have to not know change, but we're going to have to understand change so that we don't miss crucial seasons in our life that are designed and instrumental for change to happen. See, some of us, you think change is hard, and the reason change is hard is because you miss seasons. Change is hard, and I just can't do it. Change is hard. It's hard because you miss the season that came to your life and said, you can use me. In fact, I'm here to bring about the change you need. And trying to change without the season in your life to help bring it about, it's difficult. It's like running uphill. Swimming against the current when you miss seasons, because with that season may come adversity, but there's also equal amount of grace. And if I miss the season, I miss the grace and I miss the opportunity. And so I start trying to change late in my own efforts, and I find out I can't change for long. So change, very simply in the context we're talking about, change is just simply to do, catch this now, to do something, I'm going to go somewhere in a minute, to do something different than what you're doing now, because what you're doing now no longer serves the highest purpose or intent for your life. Some of us don't even know why we change. I'm changing because what I'm doing is no longer serving its highest purpose. Notice what I said. I didn't say that what you were doing wasn't working, because what you're doing is working. If it wasn't working, you would have stopped doing it, because when something isn't working, it means you can't use it no more. That's the dangerous part. What you're doing is working for you, but what you're doing isn't serving you. Let me give you an example. If you had an option, what would you prefer? Would you prefer someone to work for you, or would you prefer someone to serve you? I'm going to take serving every day of the week and twice on Sunday. I don't want you to work for me, because if you work for me, Brown, it means you're going to do just enough to get by because you're serving your own agenda. But if you're serving me, you're going to do more than what's required because you have my best interests in mind. And it's the same thing with patterns, habits, thinking, and systems in our life. It's working for you, but it's only working enough to get you by. But when you have systems and behaviors and thought processes and relationships and things of that nature in your life that's not just working for you, but serving you, it's doing more than required because it refuses to not help you reach your highest potential in God. And so it's dangerous because some of us, we have this weird relationship between what's working for me and what's serving me. And you're going to have to know when it's time to change from what's working, even though it's still working. and gravitate toward what's serving. Because you cannot reach your highest potential until you involve yourself with people, relationships, and things and thinking that's serving your greatest and highest good. See, the time has come where you're going to have to know before anybody else does when God is transitioning you from what worked to what's serving. When Jesus talked to his disciples and he said, who am I? Who do you think I am? He was not asking them because he didn't know who he was. He was asking them to find out if they knew what he knew about himself. So what I'm saying to you, oh, hear me, y'all, hear me. What I'm saying to you is whatever somebody tells you about your life should not be new news. Some of us, the only time you get an update is if somebody tell you. You don't know nothing about your life or what you, but somebody has to come along and, hey, you know, God is telling you. And then you get mad because they was never supposed to tell you something new about what God wanted to do in your life. You were supposed to already know, and you should have been there saying, okay, yeah, that's confirmation. I kind of already felt that in my spirit. That's why the body of Christ is so twisted, and you got people starting churches that shouldn't. You got people preaching that shouldn't. You got people prophesying that shouldn't because somebody else told somebody else what God wanted to do in their life before they knew it. So how do you know you're supposed to be preaching? Well, you know, my pastor told me I was called to ministry. Well, how do you know you're supposed to start church? Well, my apostle told me it was my time and my season to start the ministry. This is why everybody's twisted up, because people are getting new news that should be old news because I heard it before you said it. And here's the thing, God, once again, this is why I always preach and teach relationship with God, man. Because God does different things at different times with different people in their life. And I can't say because he's shifting me, he's shifting you. And you can't say because he's shifting you, he's shifting me. I have to know when something has expired in my life so that I can move on to the new thing that's compatible with the season I'm in. Am I teaching yet? I'm just curious. This is making sense to anybody yet? So the issue is sometimes we need to be reminded just how important change is. See, you know, sometimes we forget the most important part of our life, and that was how we ended up coming to Christ. Sometimes we get so caught up in moving and this and that and the other until we forget about that crucial moment. That elixir of trouble and confusion and a whole bunch of other things that caused us to make a decision. See, so we got to be reminded about how powerful change is. Because, hear me, y'all, at the core of why anybody gives their life to a God they've never seen and to a Christ they've never experienced, never met, can always be rooted in a deep desire for change. At some point, life ran you into a dead end where you had no options. And when you got to the dead end, you looked at the damage and you said, I don't know a lot. I don't know about this God they talk about. But what I do know is life as I know it must change. And to the best of our ability, we groveled and came to God. Somehow he orchestrated it where we could get to the help that we needed. And we said, Lord, I don't know a lot about you, but Lord, what I do know is that if I give you this life of mine, can you take it and do more with it than I was able to? And when he took that life that you gave him and he began to bring about the change that you asked for, we begin to perfect the art of fighting the change we came to him to receive. Because you came to him, change me, Lord, change me. I need to change, I need to change. And the first thing he started working on was your nasty attitude. And you was like, no. Don't change that part, God. Nah. Then he started working on your narcissism, and he started coming after your excuses. And you said, no, don't touch my excuses. I need them. You can go over here, but no, God, fix my money. That's what I need you to work on. Just fix my money, God. Fix that right there, God. You just do that for me. We'll be all right. Just give me a wife. Give me a husband. Just give me, I need to, give me the, just fix. No. He said, no, I'm gonna go after something else. And we refused it. We refused the change that we came to receive. But at the core of why we ever gave over and relinquished the rights of our most prized possession, which is our life, was because something in us said, I need a change. If I started out with a need for change, I'm going to continue with a need for change. I don't get saved and stop changing. I get saved, and that's where the change begins. See, what I found is that it's a lot easier to become aware of our need for change than it is to submit to the process that brings about the change. I know I need change, but there is a process that I must go through, Charles, to get the desired result. I know I need to change, but there's a process over here. And I don't know if I can get through it. Some of us don't even start because of the fear and the doubt of thinking, I don't know if I can get through it. It don't need me starting anyway. So the reason we fight the change is because the process that brings about change not only takes you through things, but the process of change also takes away things. Takes away people. Takes away places and things that we grapple with. And we struggle to wrap our minds around, how could God see this or them or they as being bad when at one point it served a purpose? Well, it's because you said it. At one point it worked. But now they, them no longer serve the highest purpose for your life. And here's the thing that you got to really get that we miss in church, and we talk about change because we get excited about the possibilities. But here's we don't draw the connection that there's a strong connection between change and loss. Did you know that? You don't get to change without losing something. Did you hear me? You don't get to change. See, this is what I'm saying. You don't understand change. And that's why when you start changing, you keep quitting at the same place, because the things you did not put into the equation that brings about the change catches you off guard. Hold up, I got to change them. I got to lose relationships. I got to lose job, car, house. I got to give up some things. Because change comes with a healthy balance of a time to get and a time to lose, a time to cry, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance. And the problem with the church is all we want to do is dance and sing and be happy. But these seasons that come to make you better through change never came with an escape clause or a disclaimer that said you're going to always be happy while the change is happening, or you're going to be able to keep everything you started with, or everything that was good is going to remain. One thing change promises is that you're going to have to let the change not only take you through things, but let change take away things that have ran its course in your life. And anytime you try to hold on to anything, which is a people, person, place, thing, anytime you try to hang on to that stuff longer than you're supposed to, it will make you worse, not better. And oh my gosh, how have we become the kind of people that love to pray for God to do great things? But it's your decision to not change that won't let the great things happen. I would believe that most of what we prayed for should have happened years ago. But it didn't happen because you didn't change years ago. Says change is equivalent to loss. Because if I don't lose something through my change, it indicates I have not changed at all. And so when change happens and seasons happen, that's the time that you're going to have to trust God with the life you gave him. Because it's not going to make sense to you why he says change that. Because that is small, that ain't a big deal, and it ain't gonna make sense to you. And God is saying, I don't want you to worry about the details, I just want you to change. Because some things in our life is not going to make sense until after we change. It's not supposed to make sense before you change. Because before you change, it's going to sound crazy to you because your mind is not compatible with the change he's telling you to make. So sometimes, like a blind fool, you just must make adjustments because he told you to when he told you to. And let the understanding of why catch up after the fact. You're trying to understand why he wants you to change before your mind has even changed to understand why he wants you to change. And that's what's happening in our life. So what the text is saying is that seasons change. To everything, there's a season. That's us. And a time for every purpose. So what he's saying is, if there's a time and season to everything under heaven, that would include us because we under the heavens. He didn't leave none of us out. So each one of us have individual seasons and individual changes and different adjustments that we have to make to our life, right? But we got to know when, because it's a season. So what he's saying is we have to approach our individual lives from that philosophy that says, you know what, seasons change. So I have to make sure that I change with the season because there's a certain amount of time that I'm able to benefit from its purpose. I got a small window. See, I don't have time to be negotiating with God. Let me go further. I don't even have time because of my own stubbornness. And I didn't move when God said move, and I didn't change when he said change. I can't even let my own stubbornness that kept me in this spot make me mad with you because God had to use you to tell me to change because I wouldn't listen. It's a small window of time that I have to make this move. And I don't have time to argue with God. I don't have time to argue with you, Charles, because now he has to use you because I was too stubborn to listen. I don't have time. I got time enough to hear the command and say, God, here I go. The problem is when we refuse change. Refusing it means it's happening, but I choose not to participate. When we refuse change, we sabotage our own ability to live and experience the life more abundantly. Because when we refuse change, we get stuck trying to live in one season of our life that we were only supposed to visit temporarily. How many of us, we keep trying to go back to what it used to be? You go and find that what it used to be, it ain't going to work. Because whoever you're trying to find what it used to be with, both of you done changed. Not even just people, it's places. Well, you remember, there's a place me and my wife, we always talk about called, I think it was Grand Canary Island. And that was probably the best moment of our life. We went over there and had a good time and all that stuff about 2 weeks. That was the first time in my life I didn't want to come back to church. True story. I didn't want to come back to church. I don't want to come back. I don't want to go back. I was just having such a good time over there, enjoying everything. And I think we were newlyweds and all that stuff. But let me tell you something. As great as that time was, if we thought that getting back over there was going to put it right back, you know, we'll find out it's just the Grand Canary Islands. Because you can't go back to a place and try to revive something that used to be. I dealt with people. I dealt with places just now. Now even with things. Well, I remember when I had this. I remember when I had that. When I had that thing and how I felt when I had it. And some of us, we think if I go back and get that thing, I'm going to feel the way I did when I had the thing. But the problem is the thing stayed the same, but you didn't. And you're going to find that you don't get the same fulfillment out of what you had because you're not that person no more. This stuff is richer than you deserve to hear. Because some of this stuff is slipping clean over our heads, man. And God is trying to fix you this morning. When the problem is, when change sent us to this invisible God we never met, never shook hands with, never felt his presence. When change sent us to this God, the problem we had, we thought change meant fixing people. If I come to God, he'll fix all them people on my job, boy, because I'm his child, and he'll make them do me right. Come to God, he'll fix my stuff. He'll fix my money. He'll fix my marriage. He'll give me a husband. He'll give me a wife. He'll give me a kid. God will fix a whole bunch of things. That's what I thought change meant. Then we signed up. And after we signed up, we realized change did not mean fixing things. Change meant fixing you. No, it changed. No, that ain't what I signed up for. I didn't sign up for that. I wanted him. You don't understand. I wanted God to fix my money. And I was single, and I wanted God to give me a partner and a companion, and I wanted my life, and I wanted to ride down, like women be, I wanted to ride down into the sunset. Like Prince Charles. That was my mind. Yeah, God, fix it. God said, no, change isn't fixing anything. It's fixing you. And if I fix you, you'll see all the other problems different. Wait, God, you telling me then I am the problem? Yes. Y'all know I'm telling the truth. Yeah. So that's what happens is we get stuck in one season. Why, I dare you. We always talking about how we are God, the apple of God's eye, and he know how many hairs we have on our head. Even if you bald-headed, he know how many hairs you used to have. And that's how much he's infatuated with you. And he loves you. And God, he died for you. He loves you so much. And we talk about all that, and all that's wonderful, and all that's true. But if that's the case, why do you minimize being the greatest thing he ever created to living your entire life out of one little season? Are you not worth more? Are you not worth being able to explore the possibilities that go beyond the best moment you had in your life? I don't love no moment so much that I'm willing to rob myself of what could be. Eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, neither has it entered the heart of them who love the Lord what he's prepared for you. But the Bible says we know those things by our spirit, and my spirit tells me there's more beyond now. That's why I'm like I am, man. I know there's better down the line, and I don't have to see it to know it. My spirit informs me. Let the season do what it needs to do. Let it change. Let it bring balance. Because I don't want you not letting the season accomplish its purpose. Because if you go into the next season, you're not going to reap from it anyway, because you came into it trying to hold on to what has been. And it challenges every one of us at our core. Why do you think that God commanded the children of Israel, when they left Egypt bondage, going to Canaan, which is the promised land, why do you think God told them to live in tents? Catch this. He said, I'm going to give you houses that you didn't build, but I'm going to give you the houses after you get to the promised land. So this tells me he could have given them houses on the way, but he chose not to. He says, I'm not going to give you the house on the way to the promised land. I'm going to cause you to live in tents. Because a tent is a constant reminder that you have not arrived at your destination. God says, I'm going to use the discomfort of the tent to remind you that this season is not where you're supposed to live in your journey to get into where I want you to be. And he ain't talking about changing churches, changing pastors, changing this. And he's talking about changing you. We've changed area codes, zip codes, churches, preachers, pastors for so many different years, and we have not changed. Because whatever you change on the outside, you still bring you there. He's talking about location in your heart. Change in your heart. My question is, how many of us have built the house where we were supposed to pitch a tent? Look at the seasons of your life. Look at career. Did you build a house in the career that you're supposed to pitch a tent? And maybe the only reason it's comfortable is because you built something that you weren't supposed to build at that season. Look at our relationships. Did you buy a house where you were supposed to pitch a tent? Did you come into the relationship, whether you married or just with relationships, period, did you come into it and just get stuck because you got comfortable? What about in how we deal with God? Did you come into it not realizing it's a journey and you got stuck because you built the house where you were supposed to pitch a tent? And now comfort has become your greatest enemy because you bought where you were supposed to be renting. See, it's hard for me to change seasons when I have bought where I was supposed to rent, because now I have invested too much to change. Because to change from where I've made a great investment, I now know that to change, I got to lose, and I've invested a lot in that right there. We see people get stuck in their lives all the time. Career, how they deal with money, how they think, married, single, just get stuck. And it's because when we choose to refuse the natural course of change in our lives, we get stuck and get mad at everybody in our life who chose to change. Now I'm about to go into some muddy water. Because let's deal with the career. How many times have you gotten mad because you worked somewhere that you felt like you were more qualified and you had more time in, but everybody else that come in after you was running laps around you, getting promoted, getting pay raises, and instead of sitting there thinking about, I wonder what kind of changes they made behind the scenes that I wasn't willing to make. And maybe that's why you ain't get promoted. Maybe that's why you were looked at as a dirtbag on the job. Maybe that's why like everybody less qualified did better. But maybe it was not because they were saved and you were saved. They weren't saved, but you were saved. Maybe it was just because they put simple principles to use and they actually made adjustments that would make them competitive. You don't think like that. We don't think like that, do we? We just get, they just be brown nosing. I ain't kissing nobody behind. I ain't playing that game. And everybody, it's just fake. No, it's not always that. Some people, whether they are saved or not, they just put simple principles to work called cutting edge. I must change to fit in the context of where I am. And the reason they soar past you is because they made changes that you didn't. But I'm mad at everybody around me. They just moving, and everybody fault. No, let's deal with some. I want you to think this morning because some of us, we in some mess. We are in some mess, and it's because we years behind these season changes. And you keep telling yourself, no, nothing happened. You are behind. Even in marriage. I want somebody. You get married. Pitch the tent right at the altar. No, I'm sorry, you built the house right at the altar. And the marriage done gone on for years. And if we could look in the spirit, guess where we'll find you? You still at the altar saying I do, and you don't realize the marriage done gone on. Y'all don't want to play with me this morning. If in the spirit, if we could look, you still sitting up, years later, you still sitting up there holding some flowers in front of an imaginary preacher talking about I do, and you didn't get the memo that the marriage is 10, 12 years deep. But you know what? Usually, and this is in every marriage, you usually find, so if you're about to get married, you better take this into consideration. This is what I found over the years. It's always one person who is really, really trying to develop themselves and be better. And it's always somebody else who ain't doing the work in the marriage. And then the person who ain't doing nothing want to get mad at the person who's trying to be better. You single, you better think about that. It never fails. I'm mad because it seemed, Charles, it seemed like we're growing apart. I wonder why. If one person is putting in the work, I just used it with jobs, same principle. If one person is putting in the work, and let me say this, Can I talk to your heart, man? Some of you married and you faking like you on the same sheet of music. And let me tell you this before it get too far gone. The worst thing you can do is be invested for years thinking both people are building something and you find out you was the only one working. So if you're going to keep it real with your spouse, keep it real now. Quit faking it. I don't want to argue, so I'm just going to act like we're... No. You can't do that. If one is changing and one ain't, how can you be mad because one person chose to? Isn't that something to really think about? Because seasons hit every area of our life. When summer, spring, winter, fall happen, does it skip over your house? It hits everybody. So seasons, when they change, they hit every area of your life. Your money, your marriage, your friendships, your relationship with God. And even with that, let's deal with that. Some of us... Deke taught this, I think Deke taught this last time we was here. We meet God, and some of us, if we were to put the big screen on the wall, we would find you in the spirit at the same place you gave your life to him. What I mean? It's years later, and you still think he's okay with you saying, well, I'm just tired right now, I can't pray. So you got away with that when you came to him. He charged it to the game, Charles. God charged it to the game. He said they don't know no better. They don't know. They new to this thing. But how is it years later you still struggling? I can't read the Bible. I don't get nothing from it. I don't know how to apply the word I heard. I don't know how to fast. I can't fast. And I mean, come on now. At some point, God has moved and you didn't. You can't get mad at God, because he's done everything he could to bring you along with him. But you refuse to change. Because to change means I'm going to lose something. And I can't lose this house I built when you should have pitched a tent. I'm almost done. I'm almost done, y'all. I'm going to get out your way. So life has tried to preach us a message. It's tried to send us a message over and over again, and that's what Solomon came back today, and he's trying to send a message and send us a message, send us a message. And life is trying to tell you that seasons change and that life will go on with or without you. It's going to go on with or without you. The clock is telling you that right now. Your hair is telling you that every time you go to the barbershop, every time you go to the hair salon, your hair is saying, I'm going on with or without you. Everything, your age, every year you celebrating eating cake and blowing out candles. Getting happy because you a new year, but you got an old mind. I want a gift, I want a gift, I want a gift. And you done neglected the greatest gift, which was the Holy Ghost in you to make your behind compatible with as old as you are. Y'all see how simple we get sometimes? How my birthday? Y'all want a cake? You better spend $1,000 on me. And I'm going to use an example. You better take me to Cancun, Nicole. You better buy me something new, and you better do that. And your simple, small thinking has completely missed the fact that age brought you into a new season. Are you thinking at the level of your age? You don't think about none of that. You just want some stuff. We're better than that, aren't we? We're better than that. And somebody got to remind you how important change is, and that you got to understand it if you want to follow through with it. Enough of all this starting and stopping. You've trained yourself to be a quitter. And you can't blame your quitting on the devil, because the devil ain't the one that told you to change. So he can't stop you from changing. Huh? I'm about to wrap this up, y'all. I know I'm going long, but I'm about to wrap this up and I'm going to get out the way, but I ain't been preaching in 3 weeks. But let me share this with you, and I'm going to get out the way now. So, the scripture's telling us seasons change. That means I got a small amount of time, right? I got a short window to make that decision. If I'm going to go with it or get left behind. I got seasons change. So, if God tells you to change today, and I'm using an example, if he tells you to tell you to change today, you can't be stubborn and not change for 10 years. And then after 10 years, you decide to change. Y'all ain't getting it. If I tell you to change, I'm using that. If I tell you to change today, and you sit around for 10 years, well, I ain't going to change. You need to change, not me. Then after 10 years, you decide to make the change that you were supposed to make 10 years ago. Nobody needs your change that's 10 years late. This is real, ain't it? That's like me saying I need some water and you show up 10 years later with the water. Think about that. You're thirsty. You need a drink. You need it now. And then I'm like, okay, I got you. I know you need it. And 10 years later, I show up with the water. I don't need it 10 years. This is God. I don't need it 10 years later. I need it now. If I didn't need it now, I wouldn't have asked you for it now. And that's some of it. Well, 10 years there. Well, yeah, I'll change now. And then you wonder, you done messed up you and everybody else around you because they needed it when God asked for it. They needed it when he asked. If he wanted it 10 years later, God would have told you to change 10 years later. But that's what he needs it now. So when it's time to change, I must change. And I know that sounds harsh, but what's harsher is some of us may have not acknowledged and may not even be able to acknowledge that everything has changed but you. Everything has changed but you. And if you really dig deep enough this morning, and if you really look close enough at you this morning, what you'll discover is the biggest problem you have in life are incompatibility issues. You know what that means? You hear it a lot in marriage. You know, well, we have incompatibility issues, meaning we don't get along, we have everything not in common. But that's not just in marriage. You can have the same incompatibility issues with where you are in life. Because the problem with people in church is that we change clothes, status, and titles and job careers, but we never changed our mind. And so where we are, we're incompatible with everything we're in because we are trying to operate in today's date without an update. Even your phone teaches you that. You can operate with old software and it will work, but it won't function at its highest capacity. And if you tried to use old software in 2018, it would cause problems that you could avoid if you would just update your software. And that's where we are in our lives. We're outdated. And when you miss seasons, you miss the ability to be compatible with where you are. Stop blaming people for what you chose not to do. Hey, I'm trusting that you were blessed and challenged and enlightened by that teaching. I'll be honest with you, change is not easy for any of us, but it's necessary for all of us. I'm persuaded that God may in fact be trying to use a season to change you for the better, will you accept? Until next time, God bless you.